It's 1990s Bangalore. The clock strikes midnight, the street's empty, and the only sound is the wind, until you hear footsteps approaching your home. Across the city, thousands of residents grabbed thick white chalk and scrawled two simple words on their front doors: Nale Ba, come tomorrow. Every chalk mark was a frantic attempt to negotiate with a killer, a desperate measure taken by families who believed their lives depended on a piece of limestone. The illuminated glass of modern IT parks reflects a 24-hour metropolis where the city lights never truly turn off. In the 90s, these same neighborhoods vanished into total silence after sunset, leaving the streets entirely to the dark. A specific set of rules governed the panic: a sudden midnight knock, followed by a voice calling your exact name. The entity mimicking a loved one waited outside, and opening the door meant certain death. Families stopped going out. Children were rushed inside at twilight. An entire urban population locked themselves behind heavy wooden doors, paralyzed by the setting sun. An entirely invisible threat, without leaving a single physical footprint, managed to hold a massive city hostage. Every epidemic starts with a single point of infection. In one of the city's older neighborhoods, a family heard a late-night noise they couldn't immediately identify. They shared their anxiety over the fence the next morning. By the time the story reached the next street, the bump in the night had become a witch. A week later, a shape-shifting spirit. This sequence follows a predictable path, where private anxiety scales into a public crisis. It begins with the creation of a shared social reality. When individual anxiety shifts to a community level, the group operates under a unified belief system. Inside this loop, one neighbor's unverified claim of a strange shadow is instantly accepted as undeniable fact. When tens of thousands of people subconsciously agree to perceive a threat, the original spark of the rumor no longer needs to be real. The trauma it inflicts becomes a reality. As the rumor spread, the panic entered its second phase, fear actively validating itself. A brain in a heightened state of anxiety begins misinterpreting completely mundane events. The ordinary scrape of a tree branch against brick or the cry of a stray cat is processed as a supernatural attack. Under enough psychological stress, the mind's rational processing centers begin to shut down entirely. This explains the chalk on the doors. The residents calculated that a spirit capable of mimicking human voices would read the words "come tomorrow," politely obey the instruction, and trap itself in an infinite loop of returning the next day. Facing overwhelming fear, humans will latch onto any available defense mechanism, no matter how irrational, simply to regain a fragile sense of control over the dark. This specific psychological reflex operates identically far beyond India. Japan experienced exact behavioral panics with rumors of a slit-mouthed woman stalking nighttime streets. You see the same behavioral patterns in Mexico's weeping woman, or in American teenagers terrified of spirits living inside mirrors. The names and locations change, but the underlying terror is identical. Across centuries and cultures, the human mind reliably invents these terrifying entities to process its innate biological fear of the unknown. After months of panic, the physical evidence collected in Bangalore amounted to exactly zero. No photographs, no recordings, and no scientific proof of the entity ever surfaced. Yet an entirely imaginary threat successfully altered the daily routines of millions of people. The epidemic of mass hysteria itself became the true threat stalking the city. A shared fiction can become heavy enough to dictate the movements of millions, turning an entire population into its own jailer. Even today, if you look closely in the oldest corners of the city, you might still find faint, chalky traces of those two words lingering on weathered door frames, leaving us to wonder what happens when the clock hits 12, the wind picks up, and a sudden silence falls over the house. Because if a fear is potent enough to dictate how you live your life, does it really matter if the ghost is real?